Hello friends. In this video, it's the story of an American legend, the story of Harley-Davidson motorcycles. At the beginning of 1901, William Harley, who was only 22 years old, designed a project for a small engine with a displacement of 115 cubic centimeters. For the next 2 years, Harley and his childhood friend Arthur Davidson worked on a motorized bicycle, using the garage at their friend Henry Melk's house. The work was completed by 1903. After finishing the work, the young men realized that their creation couldn't even conquer the modest hills of Milwaukee without the help of pedals. For this reason, Harley and Davidson decided to leave their motorized bicycle as their first, not very successful experience. Immediately after that, work began on a new, more modern motorcycle. The 405cc engine with an automatic intake valve and a power of 3 horsepower allowed them to climb any hill without having to use the pedals. The reinforced frame with a loop-shaped bend at the bottom allowed the engine to be positioned in a way that lowered the center of gravity. The frame was similar to the frame of the 1903 Milwaukee Merkel motorcycle designed by Joseph Merkel. The drive to the rear wheel used a flat belt with a tension roller that acted as a clutch. The design turned out to be so successful that its creators, soon joined by their older brothers Arthur, Davidson, Walter, and William, did not make any modifications for several years, focusing instead on organizing production. The prototype of the new motorcycle was built in a 3x5 meter shed that stood in the yard of the Davidson family's house. However, most of the main components were made elsewhere, mainly in the workshop of the West Milwaukee Railroad Depot, where the eldest brother, William Davidson, worked as a toolmaker. The prototype was completed on September 8, 1904, and on the same day took part in a motorcycle race at State Fair Park. The rider was Edward Hildebrandt. He finished the race in 4th place. This race was the first documented appearance of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. In January 1905, the Automobile and Cycle Trade Journal published the first small advertisement announcing that Harley-Davidson engines were now available for sale. By April, complete motorcycles were being sold, but only in very limited quantities. That year, Harley-Davidson's first dealer, Carl Land from Chicago, sold 3 motorcycles out of the dozen that were assembled in the shed. With such a growth rate, it was impossible to stay in a small wooden hangar, and soon the company moved to a large building in Milwaukee's industrial area. The new structure required careful distribution of roles, although everyone could influence other sectors. The management team consisted of the following: President Walter Davidson, Vice President and Manager William Davidson, Secretary and Chief Sales Manager Arthur Davidson, and Chief Engineer and Controller William Harley. In 1907, 150 motorcycles were produced. The company also managed to secure an important share of the market because that year they signed a contract under which Harleys began to be purchased for the local police. Also in 1907, the model with a new single-cylinder engine of 440 cubic centimeters and 4 horsepower received a short-lever front fork with long spring struts, an efficient component used in the company's motorcycles until the late 1940s. At that time, William Harley began working on a V-twin engine with a displacement of 810 cubic centimeters, and a power output of 7 horsepower with automatic intake valves, which debuted in 1909 on the 5D model. This motorcycle was almost twice as powerful as the first single-cylinder ones. The maximum speed was about 97 kilometers per hour. Since then, and up to the present day, V-shaped engines have become the company's trademark. It should be noted here that the concept of a 2-cylinder V-shaped engine is not an American invention. However, the company significantly improved it, and after some time, it became an integral part of the brand's image. Between 1908 and 1909, motorcycle sales grew from 450 units to 1,149. In 1910-11, the company produced both single-cylinder and V-shaped engines. A more advanced two-cylinder version, the 7D, was introduced in 1911. Keeping the same dimensions, the new engine received a mechanical drive for the overhead intake valves. The reinforced frame featured a straight front tube and two top tubes with a fuel tank placed between them. The year 1912 marked the release of motorcycles with a V-twin engine equipped with a gearbox. The chain tension could be adjusted directly with the gear shift lever. Another significant innovation that year was the seat. It became wider and received a shock absorber. In the X8E model, the displacement of the two-cylinder engine increased to 989 cubic centimeters and the power to 8 horsepower. The motorcycle configurations included options with rear-wheel drive, a chain, and a clutch in the rear hub. The new single-cylinder Model 535 debuted in 1913. The 565cc 5-horsepower engine received a mechanical drive for the overhead intake valve. In 1914, all motorcycles were equipped with a 2-speed gearbox in the rear hub, and a year later it was replaced by a 3-speed gearbox installed behind the engine. The new features of 1915 were a generator and an electric headlight. The desire to achieve supremacy on the racetracks. In 1913, the Harley-Davidson company formed a racing division. William Ottaway, who had previously worked at the Thor company, was invited to develop a special sports model. This move, as well as the launch of the Enthusiast magazine for motorcycle fans in 1916, were intended to unite the company with its customers and proved to be strong steps in promoting the company's products. In 1915, Harley-Davidson motorcycles received a kickstarter instead of pedals, a choke, a stepped transmission, and rear brakes. These and many other technical improvements, as well as the introduction of the motorcycle with a sidecar, significantly increased the brand's popularity. By the 1917 season, Ottaway had designed a V-twin engine with 4-valve cylinder heads, 988 cubic centimeters, and as much as 15 horsepower. But this creation revealed its potential only in the 1920s. After the start of World War I, the Harley-Davidson company received its first official military order. 500 motorcycles were ordered for the British Army. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, and the United States Army also began ordering motorcycles. In total, during the war, more than 20,000 Harley-Davidson motorcycles were ordered to equip the troops. 5 wars, a time of peace had come. The single-cylinder models were replaced by a very unusual machine, the 19W Sport, which was clearly created with an eye on the British Douglas. It was equipped with a 2-cylinder side-valve boxer engine with a displacement of 584 cubic centimeters and a power output of 6 horsepower with the cylinders positioned along the frame. The model was produced for 5 years, but it was much more popular not in the United States but in foreign markets. By that time, Harley-Davidson, which had produced 28,000 machines in 1920, had become one of the world's leading motorcycle manufacturers and had more than 2,000 dealers in 67 countries. Back in 1917, the first 17J machine was produced with a 1,000cc V-twin engine, and in 1921, two 1,207cc versions of this motorcycle debuted. The J model received a battery ignition system, while the FD model was equipped with a magneto. New frames, which allowed for a lower seat height, and the distinctive teardrop-shaped fuel tanks were introduced in 1925. In the same year, the company introduced the new single-cylinder Model A with a vertical side valve engine, a displacement of 346 cubic centimeters, and a power output of 8 horsepower. A year later, its overhead valve version, the AA, debuted with 12 horsepower, and it became the basis for the P-Shooter sports motorcycle, which was successful in road and track racing. In 1926, an upgraded version, the JD with 1,207 cubic centimeters and 24 horsepower, was released to the market. Its JDS version, with a detuned engine and lower gear ratios in the transmission, was designed for use with a sidecar. In 1929, the 350cc machines were replaced by the more substantial side valve Model C with 493 cubic centimeters and 10.5 horsepower. Meanwhile, work was underway at Harley-Davidson on a new family of V-twin side valve engines. The first to debut in 1929 was the Model D with 738 cubic centimeters and 15 horsepower. Its tuned version, the DL, produced 18.5 horsepower. A year later, the old J-Series machines were replaced by the side valve 1,207cc series, the 27 horsepower 5, and the 30 horsepower 5L. Initially, the motorcycles had teething problems. For the D, a new reinforced frame had to be urgently developed, and for the 5 more massive clutch flywheels. But by 1932, these shortcomings had been eliminated, which, however, did not help to avoid a dramatic drop in sales caused by the economic crisis. In 1930, the company produced about 17,000 motorcycles, but in 1933, only 3,703 units. In an attempt to enter new markets, in 1932, the company released the Servicar, a 3-wheeled cargo version of the Model D. In 1933, for the first time, customers had the opportunity to order a graphic design on the tank in the form of an eagle in the Art Deco style. This year is considered the unofficial birth date of customizing, the culture of modifying and improving models. In 1935, as a result of selling the Harley-Davidson technology license to Sankyo Seiyaku, the Japanese industry was born. The Japanese motorcycle Rikuo, Type 97, is essentially a good copy of the Harley-Davidson VL model. The Model E, which debuted in 1936, was a breakthrough for Harley-Davidson in several ways. The new engine, with a displacement of 998 cubic centimeters, was equipped with overhead valves and a dry sump lubrication system. The company's engines previously used a total loss lubrication system. The engine produced 37 horsepower in the standard version and 40 horsepower in the upgraded EC version. A separate unit housed the 4-speed gearbox. The motorcycle received a torsionally rigid duplex frame and an instrument panel on the fuel tank. This model became known as Nakoket because of the unique shape of its top covers. In the European Union version, the motorcycle reached speeds of up to 150 km/h, and in 1937, Joe Petrelli, wearing a partial fairing on a tuned version, achieved a speed of 219.12 km/h. By the 1937 season, many people knew. Other changes that appeared on the E-Series were also made to the design of Harley-Davidson's side valve models. A new design with an instrument panel on the gas tank, a circulating lubrication system, a duplex frame, and a 4-speed gearbox. For the 1207cc machine, the 738cc version received the WL index after modernization. In addition, production began on the UH models with a side valve engine of 1312cc CM and a power output of 39 horsepower. In 1941, the company introduced a version of the overhead valve model F with an increased displacement of 1208cc CM engine displacement. World War II once again interrupted the peaceful evolution of Harley-Davidson. The main model became the WLA. During the war years, the company produced about 90,000 of these motorcycles. In addition, in 1942, about 1,000 XA 750 model motorcycles were produced for combat operations in North Africa. Modeled after the BMW R71, this was one of only 2 models with a boxer engine ever developed by Harley in its entire history. The 2-cylinder side valve boxer engine of the XA model had a displacement of 748cc and produced 23 horsepower. A drive shaft was used for the rear wheel and a cantilever rear suspension. Let's finish at this point. The second part of the Harley-Davidson story will be released soon, where I will continue talking about the company's evolution after 1945. And don't forget that your activity has a positive impact on the editing of new videos. And that's all for now. See you next time.